Works. I think it's live. Bear with me for a second, chat. I want to make sure that this is working on my end. But if it is, then you guys will see my lovely mug right now. And we're going to be doing a little bit of world building today. Oh, yep, I think I see it. Yeah, it's working. We're good. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I am doing a little bit of world building today. A couple of players in my campaign are going to be playing a cleric and 2 druids. And so I need to sort of sit down and figure out what the theology of this world and the cosmology of this world looks like so that they can have a better experience. So what we're going to be doing today is doing a little bit of world building with that. And it's just going to be chill. We're going to see how long this goes. And I will have to tab out if I ever want to see chat. So it might take me a while to see things, but I will look. Yeah. That said, let's get started. I have a mostly blank document here. I threw in a little bit of text that I had done earlier. I'm going to throw in just a little bit more bit of text. But basically, I have a druid that I mentioned who is going to be playing a custom subclass that myself and a wonderful person helped me build. I'm not going to tell you too much about that right now because I do want it to be a little bit of a surprise. It's still a bit under wraps, especially to that player. And then I have a cleric who's going to be playing a domain that is currently a secret from the rest of the party, so I also will not be saying that in case any of them are watching. But we have had a couple of discussions about possible deities for them to follow. And so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be taking that little bit of information and then trying to back calculate out what this world's cosmology looks like. For a little bit of background knowledge on this world, which I think will be interesting to anyone here, is that it is a world that had a war about 350 years ago, along with another event that happened about 250 years ago. This is a world of various races, elves, orcs, dragonborn, whole 9 yards, most of them living in harmony at this point, though the elves had been isolated for a long time. Because of this, I want most of the racial pantheons to draw from very similar sources, almost as if they have all identified the same primordial force and are just giving that force identity based on their cultural identity. Meanwhile, the elves are going to be a bit different. The elves are monotheistic, and that is more of a political religion than anything else. So it's going to be really sort of the odd one out here. Yeah, so the Lord Bestial and the Lady Verdant, which is the other one that you guys can see a little bit on screen right now, they are also going to be a little bit funky because they are 2 of the ones that are the least impacted by sort of cultural shaping. They do have cultural shaping because everything is going to have cultural shaping. That is just by proxy of how people interact in the world. But they are going to be affected a little bit more by how druids see them, which is going to be a much more nature-based thing than a societal-based thing, and like a person-based thing. I've pasted in here a map of the world so that we can all have a little bit better, I guess, view on how it works and what we're looking at. Oh no, I've deleted it. But then we are also going to try and pop through, and basically each of these big cities is going to have a slightly different view on whatever cosmology we end up creating. Yeah. So let me get started here and start adding in just a little bit of heading so that we can jump back and forth easier. As you can tell, it has been a while since I have used Google Docs. Map. There we go. And then we will just start here with, okay, I think I'm going to split this up in a couple of different ways. We are going to have the primordial connections, which is what I'm going to be calling basically the sort of central figures that everyone is drawing from. And then I'm going to have the actual cosmologies themselves, which will be things like the Lord Bastille, the Lady Verdant, Tom Tom, such like that. I've also realized that I've forgotten to start my recording. So, whoops. We're going to hope that this stays up on VOD long enough for me to pull it and put it up on YouTube. If you don't know me, hello, I am Nalise. I do tabletop role-playing games content, and this includes mostly DMing advice, along with a little bit about how to write better campaigns. And part of that is me showing you how I write my campaigns, just in case it shows you something new. I've been uploading videos for a couple months now. If you go and look at my YouTube channel at Nalise RPG, you will see a couple things up there. One of my favorites right now is about lying to your players. I am a big proponent of doing that. I think that if players have all of the correct information all of the time, it's not going to be as fun. That said, the video goes into it a lot more, but there are certain, reasons you wouldn't, because you also want your words to have a little bit of truth when you are DMing. Societal deities. And then in the societal deities, I'm going to also put down the different races, because I think that's where it's going to end up being pulled out. No, I've lost the button again. And then we'll have the druids ones, because that I already have. Okay, yeah. And then Tomtem, you go up here. Beautiful. Okay. So, getting started here. I know that we're going to have Tomtem. Tomtem is a Faerunian deity, so there's not much I'm going to write specifically here. It'll be a bit more altering and flavoring to fit the world better. This is a high fantasy world, so a being that is all about constructing magic items makes a lot of sense, especially in a bit more of a technologically advanced society where artificers are a bit more common. In the book, I do believe Tomtem is knowledge and trickery domains, but that may not be the case in my final pantheon. Yeah, knowledge and trickery. Cheers. So what I'm going to end up doing is we have Tomtem, uses blindfolds as symbols. I think there's an eye motif that could be used because I like eyes for knowledge deities. We'll see how else that goes. And then quick blurb about him. It is a dwarf. I have to really remember my Forgotten Realms lore here. But I do believe it is a dwarf craftsman who is blind for some reason and then constructs magic items with his priests basically having a focus on constructing items or keeping like magical technology or magical items working. So they respect, idolize, care for, worship. Worship is the word I'm looking for. Priest worship, magical item, crafting, and caretaking. So that will be our first one on the list. And then I'm also just going to give this guy a little bit, I've done it again, that's not where the formatting is, a little bit of formatting so that he pops up in our outline. Perfect. That said, because we now know that we're going to have a knowledge domain of some sort, I am going to immediately pop that up here as well. Heading 3. So we're going to have some primordial force dealing with knowledge. This doesn't, at this point, doesn't mean exclusively knowledge. This is just, I know that knowledge needs to go somewhere up here, and we're going to fit that in later. I do think it's neat that Tomtem already has the trickery aspect locked in there. So I might think about playing around with keeping sort of the hiding of knowledge or secrecy intrinsic into any knowledge domain stuff that I end up writing. And hey, Sunny K, welcome in chat. This is actually one of my players in this campaign, which is why I'm keeping information secret. But yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of primordial deity lore, which will be important in game, and the other players might also watch this VOD later, so I don't want to give everything away. Yeah, so since we're talking about dwarven religions right now, I'm just gonna point here. Oh, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen actually. So, oh, can I hang on? I think I can do this. I'm just gonna insert like a little item. Oh, you can do drawings. I know you can do drawings. No, I've forgotten how Google Drive works, guys. This is fine. Hang in here. Well, okay. So there's a city called Ironcliff. It's sort of in the bottom right on the coastline. That's the dwarven city. This is where not only dwarves live here, but this is a city that was built by dwarves millennia ago. So it's where it's the most prevalent type of culture that is found in Ironcliff. As such, I'm going to be pulling a lot from Figurinian deities just because I do not want to craft like solo deities for everything. That would take a lot of time, and I don't want to spend that much time on this. Since I'm already going to be crafting the primordial deities, which is quite a bit as well. That is actually one of the things I really do like about Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games, is I can take what already exists and change it enough to be relevant to whatever I am doing. That said, thinking about Dwarven society, I'm going to start pulling out other gods or other deities that might end up being important. So Ironcliff is a city that was built inside of a mountain, like inside of the cliff face itself. There's a lot of very rich ore deposits, gemstone deposits, such like that. So I think it would make a lot of sense to have some sort of mining deity. I think it would make a lot of sense to have some sort of probably some sort of construction deity. I don't know if I want to make it different from the mining deity itself, but I will write it down because why not? And then in addition to that, because this is a continent that was at war for a very long time, the one of the primary like watchers outposts ended up being Ironcliff itself. So I think it would make a lot of sense to have some sort of war deity or siege deity that came into existence or general knowledge more recently. Following along that, let's see, dwarves are a fairly long-lived species. It would make sense if there's an elder. There is one god that is more elderly. Oh, actually, what if we make an elderly deity? But one that is also craft work. So we have Tom who does a lot of craftsmanship, which maybe I make it Tom himself. It could also be interesting to have a different craftwork deity. Actually, you know what? Now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm putting it in Tom. I'm making Tom elderly. And then I think I'm going to actually go up to our little primordial area and put down that the knowledge deity is normally going to be depicted as elderly or associated with such. And what I'm doing here is I'm pulling in basically recurrent themes that I can then sprinkle throughout the other specific societal deities. And yeah, see where it goes from there. So I'm also going to put eyes up here because eyes are cool. And then I can remove eyes from Tom himself because Tom is blindfolded, which still works into the vision motif and therefore carries through that. Yeah, that theme. Yes, so Sunny K, Tom does hold dominion over a particular aspect of knowledge. It's... Oh, the cursor is visible. Wonderful, incredible. So Tom is a dwarven deity from the Faerunian pantheon that deals with a lot of magic item crafting. So that is the primary method of knowledge he has. It's basically giving magical abilities to those who may not be casters themselves. To anyone who is a massive D&D nerd, I could be getting this wrong. I read one wiki on Tomtem, and that was all I needed to go on this rant. But yeah, so that is what we're going for there. I do really like that idea of textile weaving and time. I think that's a really interesting combo to have around. What I'm just going to do actually is add another little segment that is miscellaneous ideas. Time and weaving. We'll just pop that down there. I also don't necessarily want to put these too close to any real world, modern religion or historical religion, with the single exception of the elves. Speaking of which, I should talk about the elves. The elves are special, I think is going to be the best way to say this. So the elves were isolated from the rest of the continent for a very long time, and I will pop us back up to the map very, very quickly. Ooh, I can't type. There we go. So the elves are from this little peninsula called Oberon, and this is where the lore of this world gets a little bit funky. So that peninsula and the city and the previous elven monarch all share the name Oberon. And this is because the elves worked on a very monarchistic system where basically if you are the monarch, you become synonymous with the land and the society itself. Think like the Queen of England, now King of England. That was so integral to whenever you would think about England itself. It's that taken to an extreme of, okay, if you were talking about the elves, you were talking about the Elven King himself. The elves ended up doing a wonderfully awful thing. Wonderful in the sense of world building, awful in the sense of actual effects. And they tried to invade the rest of the continent. So they tried to invade the rest of the continent. They thoroughly believed that elves were the superior life form and wanted to basically spread their will and spread their king's will across the rest of the continent. Luckily for us, this didn't work. The other races of Gurunk, the name of the continent, ended up coming together under a single banner to push back the Elven invasion, and they erected a barrier of magic right here in this now gray stripe on the map, which was a magical barrier to prevent any Elven races from passing over it. This led to extreme isolation. My theories for their isolation ended up coming a lot from the isolation of Japan, because that is one of the things I was studying back 7 years ago when I made this world. Yeah, fun fact, I made this world 7 years ago, so it is very rough around the edges, and this is also a chance for me to sort of smooth those out a little bit and give it a bit more polish. So Oberon was... The elves were isolated for a very long time. I think it was 100 years of strict isolation, and then the barrier fell again due to things caused by players. So very recently, the elves have been reintegrating. Of course, there's still a lot of bad blood about that because of the war. This is also why Oberon is a little bit different, because they follow a religion that is based on divine right of kings rather than anything else. Or I guess not divine right of kings, because divine right of kings is the king gets power from a god, and this is like the god gets power from the king. So it's the opposite. Yeah. So currently, I am calling the elven deity Oberon. Oberon was the previous king of the elves. Oberon is not the king of the elves anymore. So, what was her name? Titania? I think it was. I stole it from Shakespeare. Don't worry about it. So that deity might have ended up actually changing names. I've not thought through Titania's actual views on this, because Titania is also the one who is leading the reintegration process. But yeah. Okay, Fire Elf Nation, good joke. Really funny joke. I love that. Good job, chat. Done great. Yeah, so Oberon, monotheistic religion. and very, I don't want to say sunny motifs, but very golden motifs. And, oh, hates water. Water is actually a bane in the religion of the elves, solely because the sea elves decided not to support the war effort, and Oberon got cranky over that. So with that as well, ooh, it might be interesting if they carry on a belief of the closer you are to Oberon or to the ruling deity, the ruling elf, the like the more divine you yourself are. This would be a little bit similar to some of Aristotle's teachings. I think it was Aristotle. Give me a second to type. But it was the philosophy that I'm thinking about was basically they believed that mortals all had a touch of the divine in them, and so you could cultivate that spark of the divine into becoming like a better version of yourself, or like a more wholesome, like a more whole version of yourself. I think that one might be an interesting thing to put in the elven religion because they have the most unity across their entire pantheon. The others more have unity between pantheons. Also, because of this, the elves are not necessarily going to share any connections with the primordial connections. And if they do, it would probably be a holdover from ancient elven times. Think, first... Oh, what is it called back in Lord of the Rings? The First Age. But, yeah. Pantheons. We'll call them pantheons. Yeah. So with that, I'm then going to go back to the dwarves, because I like the dwarves. Construction... I might actually end up cutting because, oh, sorry, I think you guys are hearing my keyboard, but I might end up merging construction with TomTom because it is a very similar thing and it would simplify my note-taking process. The more deities I end up creating here, the more deities I'm going to have to remember and I'm going to have to tell to my players. So I do have a bit of a... bias towards lesser is better. And I do know that I think I want the Orcish pantheon to have the fewest deities aside from the elves. Speaking of orcs, I love orcs. In my campaign, they are actually one of the biggest... how do I think it's like that, yeah. Orcs are one of the most populous groups in Garunk. They are from the city of Cathden, if I can scroll back up a little bit. There we go. Cathden, down here in the desert. They have a fairly nomadic lifestyle due to the fact that crops never really grew in Cathden. And the crops that did grow grew in chronological cycles, so you would need to basically give them time to regrow after you would harvest them. Cathden itself travels around a couple of set places in the desert. So it will be, in this place in wet season, in this place in dry season, in this place in colored season. I'm going to rename that. That was bad. But I'm thinking about the, is it Diwali? The festival of, dyes. Where everything is just sort of the flowers and the gemstones that would end up giving dye colors grow and become prevalent. I just want to check that I'm right on this. The Festival of Lights. Yes. Okay. But yeah, so for the orcs specifically, I do want to keep pulling from Faerunian lore, which means the orcs end up having relatively few options for deities. So we only have 6 according to the Dungeons & Dragons standard resources. and most of them are war and such like that. So, I think that is a good place to start. We will have a war deity. We'll have a war deity. We will have a... I think a nature deity makes a lot of sense, especially for a nomadic community, and especially for a people that care so much about the cycles of growth and the cycles of what is around. Ooh, and I think it's also worth having the nature deity be connected to whatever the agricultural deity ends up being in the primordial pantheon. PD, or sure, PD. Yeah, which also means that I might end up having it so that we don't have necessarily an agricultural deity. Rather, it ends up being a deity more about food, and possibly the community that comes from food. And then this would include agriculture. This would include foraging, as well as the nature deity from the Orcish religion. Yeah. So I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of how I'm going to end up doing this. Most of it is June bugging around, where I look at specifics, pull out themes, pop them in the big theme, and then use the big themes to fill out the small ones again. Back to orcs. We have nature. I think a death god makes a lot of sense, and I think that might be the third and the last god I give the Orcish pantheon, because I'm going to add medicine into the death god. Now, person in chat, at least one of you in chat already knows a bit about this because I've talked to you about this, but in Forgotten Realms orc lore, orcs see dying in battle as a very honorable thing to do. And orc life expectancy is fairly low, both because of a short lifespan and because of a more warlike tendency that is written in the book. I don't super love it being a warlike tendency. In the campaign I actually have it where war is a more broad term for orcs. So the orcish word for war would also count for things like conflict or commerce in the common tongue. Because of this, and because these are considered honorable things, I think it would make a lot of sense that dying due to illness is considered a dishonorable, or even just a like an inhumane death for anyone in the culture. And I think it would make a lot of sense with that the death god ends up also having a very medicinal approach, where he will prevent you from dying from things like infections, which would be a really nasty way to die, both personally and theologically. Ooh, I do like communication god. That is fun. Oh, it's Holi. Oh, Sunny knows. The festival I was talking about was Holi, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. But yeah. Sunny knows. I also have somebody else in chat. Hello there. Welcome in. Vindictive Simonab. I hope you hang around and like what's happening here. But yeah. So Sunny K has also given me an idea for smoke signals, and saying that that would be a good way to communicate in the desert, and that therefore there should be maybe a communication god. I do really like that. I don't necessarily want to add another deity into the Orcish pantheon because I do want it to be a little bit smaller. Bandages, scalpel. Oh, actually, I'm not going to put black clothing there. I've decided I'm not going to do that. Communication is a really good one, though. And this is where I get a little bit... I have to spend a bit more time on it, because I do want war to be broader with the Orcish word. I mentioned this earlier, but I want the Orcish word for war to be many different things. Depending on the context. I could put communication in here, especially since I did mention commerce earlier. That would also make a lot of sense as well with if two different nomadic groups came into contact with each other, you wouldn't necessarily need to go to arms. You could also, you know, talk about it and talk things through and figure out if you wanted to, you know, work together for a while, travel to the next area together, or part ways. I do like that. So maybe I put one of the symbols in the war god then as smoke. And I also want to add thick paints, I think. Just to pull in some of the more Faerunian war paint stuff. Along with, I'm going to go metal to be a little bit broad, with metals including things like weapons, but also things like coins. Again, to sort of show the breadth of the war deity. Now let's go over here and let's see if we can pick out a name. We've got a couple over here. Grimish is the one I know the most. Also, this is my first stream, so none of you know this yet. But the alignment, I don't care. I don't care about any alignment stuff. Alignments are useless to me. When I DM, I don't look at alignments. I tell my players not to pick alignments for their characters unless they really, really want to. I care more about how a player is going to act in different situations than how a character is going to act all of the time. I think alignments can be useful sometimes, but I would rather not get bogged down and have my view on a character or my view on a concept limited by the alignment system in D&D, which is funky. So I'm not going to be looking at alignment for any of these. I will be looking at some of the symbols because I think those are very cool. And yeah, we're going to go from there. So yeah, and see, this is some of the stuff about the Forgotten Realms lore and the D&D lore as is. I don't love how they talk about orcs. Orcs are my beloved. My first darling NPC was an orc. Her name was Rock. She was wonderful. She was a bard. She was a traveler who ended up homing herself in a coastal city. But yeah, I don't like them being savages. I try and paint orcs in a much more positive light in my games. Sunny K in chat also knows a lot about this, especially because... Sorry, I've just seen God of Discourse in the chat. This is wonderful. GG, incredible everyone. But yeah, I like to cast orcs in a more positive light, especially because a lot of the history involved in how orcs have been written, a lot of the times they have pulled from some pretty nasty stereotypes about like real groups of people, and I don't want to further that in my own personal games. Yeah. But let's see. I'm also trying to catch up on chat really quickly. Good. Okay. Yes. Rock in chat. Please celebrate rock in chat. This is important. But yeah. So going back over to what I was talking about previously, Bogthrough looks interesting. Ruthlessness does make a lot of sense, especially for something that is going to be associated with the rest of the continent with war. And I do like that Bogthrough has a connection to hunting, which is something else that I would qualify in the war domain for orcs. Let's see. Cruel, sometimes ride into battle. Okay. Good to know. Good option. Grimish is the one that I know a little bit more. And I think I have actually used Grimish before in the previous campaign, and I gave them a artifact of Grimish. Grimish also still carries through the eye motif, which is really interesting, especially if you're keeping track of our primordial deities. But Grimish also has a bit of a fertility spin, it looks like, with driving to increase numbers. And again, it's not quite as ferocious as Bogthru, but it does care. Grimish does seem to care a lot about proving yourself, just from what I'm skimming here. That's neat. I think it would make sense, especially then, where if you were very good in a certain skill, you would be considered one of the chosen of Grimish. Oh, that could actually be a really interesting cultural thing for orcs. Oh, hello. To become an Eye of Grimish, you must gouge out one of your eyes as a sign of devotion. Okay. Hello, Sunny K. I'm not going to go into this any further while you are in chat, but I like this a lot. I like this a lot, especially because, and this is the bit that I will go into with you in chat, TomTom is blind. So I think it's really interesting if we pull in another loss of vision into a different pantheon. And I think that sold me on calling this god Grimish. If I can spell that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'm going with Grimish. I think I am going to again carry over one gouged out eye. And then those who want to increase their how do I want to phrase this? I don't know if I want it to be those who are desiring to be more proficient in their domain, or if I want it to be those who have worked against whatever their chosen path is. Gouge out an eye. I also think that this is probably going to be a more historical thing because gouging out an eye has a really big infection risk. And infection is going to be one of those things that is massively taboo in Orcish culture. Infection, I'm just actually going to write that down. It's taboo. Dying in battle, more honorable. And I also want to specify, just while I'm talking about this, that a death by old age would be considered in this culture a battle against aging. So it would still be considered honorable because you have fought the longest battle that anyone can fight. Yeah. That would also, that's also really interesting just from a impact on the culture, because it would also mean that orcs would have an inherent, more traditional orcs or like more religious orcs would have an inherent respect for races that live long times, because it means that their battle would be much, much harder because it is a longer battle. Interesting. Good to think about, good to think about. Has effects, or affects cultural view on lifespan. I will just have to remember that for when I go back to do edits after this live. I love how I've started a sentence here and then forgotten what my sentence was. Oh yes, one-eyed. I do like it being a sign of devotion thing. Ooh, it could also be considered honorable to have beaten an infection. So I think I do still want it to be a positive thing. Who wish to show their mastery over a, what do I want to call it? I'm going to call it a style of war. Might gouge out one eye in appeasement, or devotion. Not devotion. As you can see, my brain is breaking, but request. I'll use request to Grumash. But yeah, so basically you could gouge out your eye to become more divine, I think is the very specific phrasing on the free Runian stuff, which I do like. Speaking of, if you're wondering what site I'm using 5e Tools. I really love them. They have a lot of the stuff, and for me who owns the books, off camera, so I'm not going to show them to you, but I own all the books, it is a little bit easier for me to go through just a digital set, and D&D Beyond, unfortunately, will not let me add my paper books into my own library. Wizards of the Coast, fix it, and I might use your site. I love orcs, dude, orcs are so good. I like orcs. Orcs are really good. Orcs are wonderful. I do like the concept of opting into the ritual. I think that's what we ended up going with a little bit in the stuff. I will actually might gouge out one eye in ritual appeasement. One second. Ritual appeasement. Request to Kermush. This also. Okay, so I want to go back up then. And I'm actually going to put, oh goodness, I think I'm going to start putting like a list of other deities that fit into the primordial deities up under the primordial deities. So we have Tom Thumb, we have Grumash, that's all we have right now. This is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to have to hyperlink this entire page. So I think that's enough about Grumash for now, because I also kind of want to go through this a bit quickly. The orcs do have one death god already, so this is going to be the name of the death god and just automatically. Euthris, the White Hand. Ah, okay. Then I might just go with that as well. White Hand. And then we have Euthris. So I do like the concept of having death and medicine together, because, yeah, they go hand in hand, both in our real world societies with thinking about things like hospitals, end of life care, such like that, but also if it's honorable to die in battle, it would be dishonorable to die outside of it. And I think it's really interesting if infection ends up being just a very cultural taboo. This would also set healers are the equivalent to gravediggers, I think, in in Western society. And I mean this in the sense of very, like they're very important, but nobody really wants to see one. I'm sorry if you're a gravedigger. I greatly appreciate the service you do. I'm sorry. I more mean in the fact of like, somebody doesn't want to be when a grave is being dug. I'm gonna stop talking. I think that's really interesting. I think it would also, White in the Desert would also be an interesting one, especially if I'm going with such a connection to color in something like the nature deity. Colorful powders. Because it would almost put you outside of the rest of culture. Or not the rest of culture, but like the rest of the society. Like there's intrinsically something that you have to miss out on because you are a healer, which could also be really interesting just from the perspective of building a culture up. Oh, this would also be interesting. I had a previous NPC named Chava. Chava ended up being a very maternal figure to a group of adventurers. So I think I'm going to retcon that Chava actually was a follower of Euthris. because that would be interesting and explain why she was a bit of an outcast in Orcish society. And also why she had so much of a desire for family if she sort of had to miss out on a lot of connection because of her chosen like religious leaning or religious devotion. Community. Deity. Stuff. I've misspelled deity. This will not be the last time. Also, if you misspelled Urtrus, there's an R in it. Whoops. I could... It's my world. I could just not have the R in it. We'll see. We'll see. Ooh, I do like the concept of mirrors in communication as well, but I'm not going to put it in the Orcish ones. I think I'm going to actually put that in the halfling ones. There's another society that is seafaring, and a lot of halflings live there. So I think I'm going to put mirror signaling up there with flag signaling. Just because I do like a little bit of spice, a little bit of distinction in my deities. Oh, that does mean I need to add another section. Nice. Oh, I should probably alphabetize these as well. I've just realized. You know what? This is fine. I'll just have some editing to do later. That's always good. That's always nice. Halfling. And then that is the wrong heading. And then I will put in here C, faring, communication, and something else. Mirror signalings, mirrors, flags, probably ships, but I don't know if I want to do like whole ships or if I want to do masts or something else. Waves, maybe waves. I like, oh, there was actually a deity I was thinking of for this. There's a Forgotten Realms deity that is old. He's like an old seaman. Don't click that. He's an old like seafarer who, for some reason or another, he was always displayed in like a naval coat or like a seafarer's coat, but then old, decrepit, such like that. I don't remember his name. I'll have to find it later. I don't remember which pantheon he was, but I want that god to be here. Yay. So back to orcs. We were at orcs. Also, I hope this is showing you guys a little bit about how I plan things. It is very chaotic. I am literally just throwing stuff at a wall, seeing what spaghetti sticks to it, and then sweeping the rest of it away. And then I, of course, have people who look at it and go, Valentine, this is dumb. We're doing it a different way. I am in debt to those people. Hi, Sunny K. Yeah, so that's interesting. So I really want to finish the Orcish pantheon here just because we're so close to being done with it. However, you are now going to find what my fatal, like my big Achilles heel is. I suck at naming things. Also, I don't have many existing names to pick from because we have 6. So there's a couple here left. We've got Shargas, the Night Lord, which is a very interesting one. This could be interesting, especially with campfires do bring people together. Resting would be one of the few times where nobody necessarily has to do any work, other than the medical practitioners who are intrinsically excluded from community. Hang on, I'm adding fire here as one of the symbols. Yeah. Probably one sort of celebration that happens at night. At night. including song. No, around campfire, on fire. I do like the concept of including song. Maybe it's including songs in the sense of like Hesiod songs, where it's like songs of legends, songs of history. And that would be how the orcs do history tracking, thinking a little bit about systems like the indigenous population of Australia uses, where their stories are told so specifically and so like often that they are some of the best accounts we have of human history. Yeah. I think one of the things that they do as well is they end up like cross-referencing their oral tellings with other oral tellers, and that's why it stays so consistent over time. I'm not entirely sure. It's been ages since I read about this. I could combine names of the relevant deities. This is good. I like this. I like this. Yeah. Navigation is a good shout as well for seafaring. Thank you. Good third thing. I'm just creating... Oh no, I'm just creating a Lord Hermes stand-in, aren't I? Communication, navigation, travel, done. Okay, where are the winged shoes? We gotta add them. I'm kidding. But this is the thing. I don't necessarily want to pull from like gods that already exist. And yet I am going to, because I am human and I am valuable and I'm pulling from what I know about the world. I do think it's a good idea to add another thing up here, because there is going to be some sort of like, ooh, I need to add the thing. There we go. There's going to be some sort of like life and death. And or mining. There's going to be some sort of life and or death deity in the primordial deities. I might end up having those in one, just because I don't necessarily want to have too many primordial deities. Oh, the primordial deities also need one other person, which is the elementals. This is because I do want to pull in some plane stuff from the Forgotten Realms lore, and the elemental planes do technically have their own primordial deities in them. I don't know if I'll have a separate primordial deity for each plane, but I will for sure have at least one primordial deity that is viewed differently by each plane. Ooh, that would actually be an interesting way to figure out how the cosmology works. So I think I'm going to do it that way. So I'll call it one force that's viewed differently by the different elemental planes. So this would be then like I don't know the names, but like there's a earth golem on the elemental plane of earth that is considered like the entire elemental plane of earth is this golem. And so it's like that is the elemental plane of earth's way of viewing the elemental primordial deity. This is also then going to be where I'm going to put the Lord Verdant and Lady Bestial, because I think this is going to be the closest thing. Ooh. Okay. Lord Verdant, Lady Bestial. Wait. Lady Verdant, Lord Bestial. I remember how it goes. Are actually going to go in one of two places. They're either going to go in life and death or in the elemental. I'm not sure yet. I'll talk about that just after I finish typing this. Lady Bestial, and then also the elemental planes rulers. Okay, so the Lord Verdant, Lady Bestial, I talked about these guys a little bit at the beginning of stream, but they are for a very specific druid subclass that I have recently helped making. The Lady Verdant and the Lord Bestial are two deities that are basically the flora and the fauna of the forest. And they're explicitly meant to be inhuman. They are animalistic, they are the plants of the forest. They're not necessarily going to have the same desires, the same goals, the same like priorities that a human does, even if that human is a druid. So I think it would make sense to have these as an elemental primordial deity, just because it is a little bit different. It is something that is more easily viewed as a whole, as the ecosystem, than as like a separate thing. But I could also see the Lady Verdant and the Lord Bastille in more of a cycle of life and death thing, especially with, you know, the herbivores eat the plants, the carnivores eat the herbivores, the carnivores die and the plants eat the carnivores. So I could see it going either way. I'll leave it in both for now, and then that might change later. Where were we? We were in the Orcish pantheon of community. That's where we were. So I do like Shargos. I think that's a really cool one, especially since I've now pulled in sort of the fire thing, and Shargos is a deity of darkness. It's also interesting that Grumish doesn't like subterfuge and indirectness. Especially since I've now expanded the definition of war. That could be a really interesting thing that ends up causing intersocietal conflict. So I'm just going to write that down so that I remember it. Subterfuge. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. I may also end the stream here in the next like 45-ish minutes because my throat's getting tired. Sunny, I so love you, Sunny, how you are in chat telling me life and death would work the most, and now I've tabbed back in and we've come to the same conclusion. Phenomenal. But yeah, let's see what else we end up having here. Yes, a typo in chat, as you would say. Healers are the. Okay, so we used Shargos. Shargos is a nice one. I also want to look at Lufik a little bit, because this is also the deity, remember, that deals with foraging in the Orcish pantheon. Let's see. Okay, so Lufik is the wife of Grumish. That does make a lot of sense, actually, that then the third deity, the odd one out, is also the one that is the most taboo in Orcish culture. Interesting. Also a goddess of the hearth. Okay, yeah, it's definitely going to be Lufik. Okay, so Shargos and Lufik both make sense here. Interesting. Also, I'm not doing caves for orcs just because I've made them a desert originating species. So I think it would make more sense if it ends up being mirages or oases or something like that. Actually, oases would be a good symbol. Let's just pop that in here as well. But yeah. Okay, so I do like Lufik. I do like Shargos as well. I like both of them. I could... No, I don't want to do that. I was going to say I could do twin deities. I do love having twin deities that work together. Think about like a Gemini constellation. I don't want to do it in the Orcish deity, or in the Orcish pantheon, I don't think. So let's do somewhere else. Shargos, Lufik. Let's see. Oh, it is interesting that Lufik also deals a little bit with craft work. That is good to know, especially if I end up putting this connected to the knowledge ones from earlier. There would be overlap with Tom Tom. Intriguing. Oh, well, what is the name? The Orcish god of death, Urtrus, is definitely going to be in the life and death camp. Just, it's there. It goes there. Which also means that life and death would probably include medicine, aging, and stuff like that. Okay, where were we? Nature. I think it would make sense if there's weaving here. Weaving being traditionally associated with a homecraft in like real world culture. It makes sense that somebody that is associated with and somebody who basically commands the aspect of community would also be associated with weaving. There is then also the possibility for weaving stories into tapestries. Weaving historical. It might not work with the oral histories that I've already established, but it's something to know, so I've just written it down. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I think I might. Oh, I like Shargos. I also like Luthic. I think I like saying Shargos more, so I think I'm gonna go with Shargos. I've not thought of a way to combine those two names off the top of my head, so we get this one. I alter a Forgotten Realms deity a little bit, and we call it good. Yeah, let's try this out. So nature. I also want to then put community here. I might put community, and then I think that's going to be the two big ones for Shargos. But I might change that later. Darkness is also an interesting one. I don't know if that's going to be her primary thing, but I will put it down. Also, I've made it a her. Yes. It's my world and I can do what I want. So. Oh no, why is it zooming? So sorry guys, hang on. Let's fix this, there we go, okay, we're good, everything's fine. With that done, I think that pulls us out of the orcish ones. Let me put Shargos up here as well before I forget. It's done it again. So if you're wondering, I'm using a Logitech keyboard that is a little bit touch and go sometimes, but I love it because it has survived so many years. With only the occasional zoom in error. Let's see. I was writing down Shargos. There we go. Okay. So there's the Orcish deities done. I'm really happy with that. Can I just like... here? Beautiful. Oh, I don't want an X. Actually, X seems silly, so I'm going to do a dash. Okay. So, there is one of them done. I'll also finish the Elvish one off for now, with the asterisk that Oberon might be renamed to Titiana, or to Titania, depending on how that ends up going. Yeah. So, I've zoomed in again. This is fine. Don't even worry about this. So, I wonder if I can find that name of that god again, the seafaring one. Goddess of sea and storms, goddess of the sea, god of Thassa, god of the sea. Maybe Tolona. Ooh, Lady of Poison, Mistress of Disease, the Plague Crone. Hello. You're fun. One of the most often beseeched of Faerun's deities. Okay, I love her. I don't know where she's going. She's going somewhere. Does it tell me? It just says Faerunian Pantheon. Great. That means I can put it wherever I want. Tolona. Disease. We're just going to put that there. We're going to use that later. See in the weather procon. yeah, that's a real person. We're not using this one. That's a real person. We're not using this one. Morrigan. Oh, disease and secrecy is also neat. Wait, hang on. Because I searched C, is it showing me disease? Hold on. Wait, I think I've sussed it out. Yeah, wilderness in the sea. Ooh. Oceans. Oh, sea creatures. I like that. Also, real deity, so we're not using that one. Hanseath. Okay, so that's interesting. The dwarves live on a sea cliff. So theoretically, they could have a oceanic deity. I don't... Ooh. Festivity, brewing, and song. That's fun, actually. I don't know if they would necessarily have a deity associated with the sea, just because it's not super important to their culture specifically. I do think it would make sense for them to have some sort of deity that is known for fault lines, for earthquakes and such like that. So I'm going to write that down quickly. Fault lines, earthquakes. Ooh, what if it's some fun little story like a giant deity that when he dances, causes the earth to quake underneath him. Underneath her, actually. Underneath them. Whoa, I can't spell. Underneath her. I'll go with underneath her. That's fun. That's a fun one. That's a funny little story. And then she would also be associated with revelry. And then I can use this deity that I've just found that I'm absolutely not stealing at all. No, why would you think that? Revelry. Earthquakes. Oh wait, hang on. This is not where I put this. This is where I put this. Bam. Okay, and then what was the name? Hanseath. Bam. I think that's fun. What else? I get no other information about her. She's trickery and war. Oh, maybe she has a connection with Tom then. Siblings? 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 Sibling to Tom. Oh, she said she had a beer stain as a... I've misspelled stain. Don't look at me. As a symbol. I love saying don't look at me while I'm actively live streaming. I hope you guys know this is a joke. Yeah. So we'll see. Ooh, a god of the sea breeze. I do like a god of the sea breeze. That is quite fun. Thank you, Sunny K, for suggesting other names for Shargas. I will not be using Shargalu. I hate how that sounds in my mouth. But yeah, this is really fun. Okay, so God of the Sea Breeze is a really good idea. I do like that. Thinking. Bolt of Cloth I also saw suggested in chat as a symbol for Shargos. I don't know that I want it for Shargos. I might put it somewhere else, but I do really like it as a symbol. Also, I worry if that might be too similar to the bandages I've already given to Yurtrus in the Orcish Pantheon. Bolt of Cloth is a very interesting one. I do really like that. Okay, so I'm gonna just alter Tom a little bit. He's still a knowledge and trickery domain. Deity for the sake of clerics, but I think I'm going to name it Craftwork. I think I'm going to name it Magic, and I think I might end up naming it then just like Knowledge. Ooh, I can't spell. All right, I think I'm going to do it this way, just to give it a little bit more specificity up here. That also means I will definitely be removing the construction deity, because I'm going to include craftwork in include construction in craftwork, because it is considered the same thing for a lot of dwarves. What I'm pulling from here is the concept of, because dwarves have a longer lifespan, they have more time to perfect a craft. So a lot of the time, a family will have like an heirloom item, which was made by somebody, like was somebody's magnum opus. And that will stay the dwarvish heirloom until somebody surpasses it in skill. And it is considered like a great honor to both dwarves involved if that is ever surpassed in skill, because it means that not only did the previous person have the best thing for a long time, but it means that somebody had to spend their entire life trying to best it, and therefore furthering the craft. I might actually send a hammer into the tom-tom symbols as well, just to drive home a little bit about that craftwork stuff. Mining, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a pickaxe in the mining symbols. That seems like an easier one. I think also like a lump of stone, or like lump of metal. What else do we have here? What else can we do here? Hello. Oh, I can read this. Fileta Villa, welcome into chat. Also, yes, can't touch this hammer time. I will not be singing because copyright strikes scare me. But yeah, welcome in. We're doing a little bit of lore crafting. We've just finished up the Orcish Pantheon, actually, and are going back to the Dwarvish Pantheon a little bit. So, because you're, I think, newer to the stream, I'm going to go over a little bit again, just in case anyone else popped in. I'm basically doing this by having big primordial deities, which are going to be very broad. So, for example, we have like knowledge, community, etc. And then basically each society will have pulled specific aspects from those primordial deities, based on what is important to their society. So for looking at dwarves, because craftwork is so important, their knowledge deity ended up becoming a craftwork deity as well. Yeah, so that's sort of what I'm looking at here. And then this is mostly just brainstorming so that I can then go and have most of the information down. I'm pulling mostly from Faerunian deities just because they're already made, they're easy to do. I'm playing a very classic high fantasy D&D, and we are going from there. Let's see, there was also at some point a god of animal life in the sea. I quite like that. That's going in the ideas. I have basically 6 different societies to make pantheons for, which is definitely going to be an experience, and why I am pulling from already existing gods. Animals and the sea. There we go. I love that this pantheon is just called non-human. Oh, merfolk. Okay, that makes sense. Iadro makes sense. Ooh. Interesting. Okay, Iadro, I like that. Yeah, okay. Let's see what other dwarvish ones we can find. Ooh, I can't spell. This is fine. It knows what I'm looking for. So, we have so many here. Let's see what I have already. So we have crafting, we have mining that I need to pick a name for. We have Hansafe, who's doing like geological conditions and then also earthquakes. Oh, this would also put Hansafe into the, I want to say elemental, but then also into the community primordial deities. So that's where, so basically I'm keeping track of this because it's where I'm going to start pulling symbolism from. So if Hansafe has a lot of earthen symbolism because she causes earthquakes, then a lot of the elemental deities might share that same sort of earthen symbolism. So that is that one. We've put them in. Tom-Tom's already up there, so that's fine. I'm also looking at a war siege deity. This one would be newer, so I could also see this being a loan word, or like a deity's name as a loan word, because it would be relatively recent in the world history. Mining would probably be a classical one. Let's see what we have. Okay, you have a nature god. That could be interesting. Neutral good, the Morning Sign in. Explorers, Wanderers, the Lost, upright mace in front of a tall boot. Okay, interesting. I don't like that they're not giving me more information on this. Let's see, what else do we have over here? Oh, there's another nature one. Thard. Wilderness and hunting. Okay. I do quite like that. I could put him here if I don't want it to be a lone lone deity. That could be interesting. Let's see what else we've got here. Ooh, little fireflies as a mining symbol. That would be really neat. That's a really good shout, Phila. I do like that. That's really cool. I genuinely like that. I think I'm gonna take that. Where's my? Hang on, I've lost my window. There it is. Mining. We're gonna add fireflies. Ooh, I also had a chat with one of my players about there are glowing stones underground. And basically there are some stones that pulse at certain chronological, periods. And that's how dwarves used to keep time in the olden days, and they're called the pulses. So like X pulses ago, something happened. I could also then see either... would that fit in mining, or would that fit more in Tom-Tom with craft work and magic? That might fit in Tom-Tom more. Good to know. I do keep fireflies. I like the fireflies. The fireflies are good. Parentheses in a land. Turn. Boop. We'll see that. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so maybe I pull out then a light domain deity to be the mining deity. That could be interesting. Let's see what we have over here. Ooh, we do have a forge domain. I should probably have a forge domain deity in the dwarvish deities. That seems important. That seems like it should not be an oversight. Okay, so we have Ula. I do like Ula. I've had a miner's pick. That is a symbol I've already picked out. Look at that. I've actually had a player use Ula before, and I do love that deity. It's a good one to play around with, good one to roleplay with. Okay, this one is a forge and a light domain, so that could fit really well for our mining deity, especially with the firefly motif. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so we've got a forge domain cleric here, Moradin. Father of the dwarves crafted his children. That might fall a bit too closely to what I'm having Tom-Tom do right now, and I don't want to have too many deities. Because, again, I'm going to have 6 different societies worth of deities. It's an interesting shout. I'll actually write Moradin down, because I do like that. And it could connect to any sort of universal, like, time or parentage force. What was it? Moradin. Dwarvish craftsman forged his children. We'll go with that. Yeah, we're writing that down. That's how we're writing it. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, and then we've got Beranar, who is also light. And that's matron of home and hearth. Okay. Ooh, that's interesting. Berenar's priests arrange marriages. using a process that finds the best matches and is designed to ensure that each generation is stronger and more talented. That's quite neat. I really like that as a concept for a society. And then, yeah, maybe in Dwarven society, arranged marriage is very common. It's actually viewed as a really positive thing because it would then also ensure that marriages tend to be stable over long periods of time. Maybe there's an old wives' tale that if somebody gets divorced, there's going to be an earthquake as the earth itself splits apart. I'm writing that down. That's cool. Dwarf. Arranged marriages common. Old wives' tale. If there is a divorce, the earth itself splits apart. Earthquakes. I don't like how I phrased that. This is fine. If there's a divorce, there's an earthquake. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I do like that. Maybe I just pull over Baranar then. Yeah, I might just do that. I think that's a good idea. Oh yeah, of course, because you're not heading properly now. There we go. Right, there we go. All fixed. I say as I wait for it to load. I'm just going to move this. I'll try and keep some form of alphabetical order. It's not an alphabetical order. Oh, no, don't do that, Valentine. There we go. Okay. I don't know why this one is being funky. We're just gonna pretend that it's not being funky, I think. No, it's still being funky. Okay. No, we're gonna leave it. I'm leaving it. I don't want to deal with it right now. All right, let's see what else there is. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to pay attention to chat. I have to tab out to see chat. I am trying to come and see chat. No, I do. Yeah. I don't have a super incredible stream set up right now, so I do have to tab out to see chat, which is why I'm a bit absent from there. But yeah, so there's Baranar True Silver. I quite like. Your symbol is intertwined rings. That makes a lot of sense, especially with arranged marriages. Okay. Yeah. No. Why are you like this? Why is this one line just got a massive break before it? Fixed? Not fixed. Not fixed. Absolutely not fixed. Okay. This is fine. This is fine. Intertwined silver. I'll just do intertwined rings. They don't need to be silver. Why would they need to be silver? We can do colors later. Yeah, see, you're fine. For some reason, you're fine. The next line just isn't fine. This is fine. Ooh, not that. There we go. Fixed. It's all fixed. Don't even worry about it. So, I like that. This would then also put Baranar into the community one. How do I spell that name? Baranar True Silver. Tom we already put up here. Hunseath we also already put up here. Yeah, nice. Okay. Jumping back down, I do believe we were looking for a mining deity and a forge deity. Okay, I quite like Ula. I also think that Tharmankul might end up being the best pull for this. That's mostly from a like game mechanics reason, because it's going to Tharmankul, as rules as written, functions as both a forge and a light cleric domain. I don't always follow rules as written. I actually believe rules are wrong, and that the rules can be changed to fit your game as long as it provides a better gaming experience. In this case, I think it might just be a little bit easier to follow it and go with Tharmankul. So we do that. Tharmankul. And then you are a mining deity, which does forge and light clerics. Nice. Okay. Also, I need to get the little hat on the U, and I don't know how to do that. Let me put the little hat on the U, please. There we go. Put the little hat on the U. Cool. There we go. Perfect. And then I need to put Tharmankul up here. I don't really have anything for Tharmankul yet. Interesting. Okay, so what's your whole deal? So you do a little bit of light stuff. You do a bunch of mining stuff. Interesting. Okay. So Tharmankul doesn't really have a spot up in the primordial connections yet. I could see an argument be made for what I've currently denoted the knowledge primordial connection. Especially with, I was already thinking about giving light and knowledge the same sort of connection. But I also know that that's been done a lot before, so I don't necessarily want to rely on that. Let's see what chat has to say. We have no new chat. That's all right. We have, yeah, so, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this one. What if I ended up putting darkness as an associated symbol for knowledge? No. I've already done blinded eyes, which I think is really interesting. Actually, I'm just going to put vision here. Just so I remember that. No, this is quite interesting. I also do know I've been going for a while now, and I can feel my voice starting to give out. So I think we're going to do one more and then call it good. Let's see. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to start? I kind of want to find that halfling seafarer. I don't think I'm going to do it right now. Why don't we look at... Okay. Chat. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to respond on this. We can do a dwarvish deity, or we can do the Lady Verdant and the Lord Bastille. I don't know if anyone's in chat right now, so this is going to be kind of funny. But I like those two quite a bit. Show. While I wait for chat to pull in, I'm going to go back to that halfling deity, and I'm going to see if I can just find it. Because it was something about, like, sailing? Maybe sailing is a keyword? No. Boat. Oh, boat might be a keyword. Boat is not a keyword. Ooh, Sahane Moonbow. That's an interesting deity. I could probably use that for... Ooh, maybe Skreekek, actually. That could be a really interesting one for Skreekek. Skreekek is a society made up of Aarakocra. So that could be really interesting, especially considering they would probably prefer agile fighting styles. Let's see, I don't necessarily see anything else here. Oh, Kurtulmok, that's fun. Cold God of War and Mining. Oh, yes, Arcana is a thing, isn't it? I should probably have Arcana deities somewhere so that people can use that as a cleric domain. Ooh, this is, okay, so this is an interesting one. So, Zaboim from the Dragonlance setting. is a god of the ocean, but very specifically a destructive god of the ocean. I do really, really like that. I think that's a really interesting one. I might end up popping that one in the halfling stuff, because I think halflings, the halfling, oh, hang on. The halfling community is very like oceanic based. Fishing, plumbing is not the right word. Fishing, aqueducts, canals, such like that. So it could be really interesting to have